All right, let's dive into one of the most important chapters for your exams, human health and disease. We're going to frame this whole thing as the body's battle, this epic, ongoing fight between our own internal defenses and all the nasty invaders trying to mess things up. Let's get into it. So here's the big question we're going to unpack today. We're not just going to memorize a bunch of names. No, we're going to understand the strategy. What are the attackers trying to do, and how do our body's defenders outsmart them? By the end of this, you'll see this incredible, invisible war that's happening inside of you literally every single day. Here's our game plan. First, we'll define the basics, what health and disease actually are. Then, we'll get into the case files on 4 major diseases you have to know. After that, we meet the hero, our immune system. We'll look at how to boost it, what happens when it breaks down, tackle the special case of AIDS, and then wrap it all up with a super fast review. Let's go. Okay, first things first, we need to define the battlefield. What exactly are we fighting for when we talk about health? And who are these invaders we're up against? This really sets the stage for everything that follows. You know, we often think of health as just not being sick, right? Well, the official definition is actually way bigger than that. According to your NCERT text, it's a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. It's the whole package. When you're truly healthy, you're more efficient, you're more productive, and you just live a better, longer life. So when our body isn't functioning properly, that's a disease. And these diseases basically fall into 2 big buckets. On one side, you have the infectious kind. These are the ones that can jump from one person to another, like the common cold or AIDS. Then on the other side, you've got non-infectious diseases, things like cancer or diabetes that you can't catch from someone. For this explainer, we're really going to zero in on those infectious diseases and the critters that cause them. And here they are, the bad guys. These disease-causing organisms are called pathogens. You can think of them as different divisions of an invading army. You've got your bacteria, viruses, fungi, protozoans, and even bigger parasites called helminths. Each one has a totally different attack style, and to beat them, you've got to know them. All right, it's time to open up the case files on 4 of the most wanted pathogens out there. Getting a handle on these is absolutely critical for your exams, so you're going to want to pay close attention to the details here. First up, we've got typhoid fever. The culprit is a bacterium called Salmonella typhi. And how does it get in? Usually through contaminated food and water. The classic signs are a really high fever that just won't quit, like 39 to 40 degrees Celsius, plus weakness and bad stomach pain. But here's the absolute key takeaway for your exams. It's confirmed by the Woodall test. You have to remember that name, Woodall test. And to help you remember how it spreads, there's this incredible real-life story of Typhoid Mary. Her real name was Mary Mallon, and she was a cook. The crazy part, she was a carrier. So she had the bacteria in her system but felt perfectly fine. And she unknowingly spread typhoid to dozens of people for years through the meals she cooked. It's a perfect example of how sneaky these pathogens can be. Next on the list, pneumonia. This one's caused by bacteria like Streptococcus pneumoniae. Now, the key thing to remember here is where it attacks. Pneumonia goes straight for the alveoli, those tiny little air sacs deep inside your lungs. It fills them up with fluid, which makes it super hard to breathe. In really bad cases, a person's lips might even turn grayish or blue from the lack of oxygen. And it spreads easily through the air when an infected person coughs or sneezes. And that brings us to the classic comparison, the common cold. Caused by rhinoviruses, it seems similar to pneumonia, right? You get a cough, a headache, but here is the single most important difference, the one that always comes up in exams. The common cold infects your nose and your upper throat, but it does not infect the lungs. That's the critical distinction. It also spreads not just through droplets, but by touching things like doorknobs or pens that an infected person has touched. Our final case file is a huge one, malaria. This disease isn't caused by a virus or bacteria, but by a tiny protozoan called Plasmodium, and it needs a getaway driver, the female Anopheles mosquito. She acts as a vector, carrying the parasite from person to person. The signature symptom? That cycle of intense chills and high fever that comes back every 3 or 4 days. And you should definitely note that the most dangerous form, caused by Plasmodium falciparum, can actually be fatal. Now, the Plasmodium life cycle is a favorite exam topic because it's so complex. It actually needs 2 different hosts, us and the mosquito, to complete its mission. So let's break it down. Step 1, an infected mosquito bites you. Step 2, the parasite hangs out and multiplies in your liver. Step 3, it busts out and starts attacking your red blood cells. Step 4, when those red blood cells burst, they release a nasty toxin called hemozoin, and that is what causes the chills and fever. And finally, step 5, Another mosquito bites you, sucks up the parasite, and the whole vicious cycle starts all over again. Okay, so we've met the villains. Now it's time to meet the hero of our story, the immune system. This thing is like a super sophisticated, multi-layered army inside your body, designed specifically to hunt down and destroy these invaders. Let's see how it works. So our immune system has two main branches. On one hand, you've got innate immunity. This is the general defense system you're born with. Think of it like a castle wall. Your skin, for example, is a physical barrier that just stops anything from getting in. It's non-specific. Then you have acquired immunity. This is like your highly trained special forces. It's pathogen-specific, and most importantly, it has memory. Its elite soldiers are B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. And even this acquired immunity comes in two flavors. Active immunity is when your body does all the work. It gets exposed to a pathogen, either by getting sick or through a vaccine, and it learns to build its own weapons, antibodies. It takes a little while to get going, but the protection is really long-lasting. Passive immunity, on the other hand, is like getting a temporary shipment of weapons from an ally. You get ready-made antibodies, like a baby gets from its mother. It's fast-acting, but it doesn't last very long. So what are these ultimate weapons? They're antibodies. These are special proteins made by your B lymphocytes. If you look at their structure, they're made of 4 chains, 2 heavy and 2 light, which is why we write it as H2L2. You can think of them as heat-seeking missiles, each one perfectly designed to lock onto one specific enemy. And a perfect example is the antibody IgA, which is found in a mother's first milk or colostrum, giving her baby that vital passive immunity right from the start. So we have this incredible defense system, but can we train it? Can we make it even better? And what happens when it just, well, messes up? That's what we're looking at next, how we can give it reinforcements, and what happens when the system malfunctions. This is where vaccination is pure genius. A vaccine is basically a boot camp for your immune system. It works entirely because of that memory feature we talked about. We introduce a weakened or dead version of a pathogen, or maybe just a piece of it. It's harmless, but your immune system sees it as a threat, attacks it, and most importantly, creates memory cells. That way, if the real bad guy ever shows up, your body is totally prepped and ready to launch a massive, immediate counterattack. But sometimes the system gets it wrong. An allergy, for example, is just a massive overreaction. Your immune system freaks out over something totally harmless, like dust or pollen. And then there's something even more serious, autoimmunity. This is when the system gets confused and can't tell the difference between your own cells and an invader. So tragically, it starts attacking your own body. Rheumatoid arthritis is a classic example of this kind of friendly fire. Now we have to turn to a really special case. This is one of the biggest challenges our immune system can face. We're talking about acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, or AIDS. This disease is so devastating because it doesn't just attack one part of your body, it attacks the very defense system that's supposed to protect you. So how does the human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV, pull this off? It's a terrifyingly effective strategy. 1, HIV is the virus. 2, it specifically targets your helper T lymphocytes. Think of these T cells as the generals of your immune army. They tell everyone else what to do. 3, the virus gets inside these generals and uses them as factories to make more copies of itself. 4, in the process, it destroys the helper T cells and their numbers just plummet. And 5, the final result is AIDS, a condition where your immune system is so weak that you can get sick from germs that a healthy person would fight off without even noticing. Whew, okay, after seeing just how devastating a full system breakdown can be, it really drives home how vital our health is. This brings us to our final briefing. We're going to touch on a couple more risks and then jump into a rapid recap to make sure all these concepts are locked in for your exams. And before we get to the recap, it's really important to remember that not all threats come from the outside. As your textbook points out, things like drug and alcohol abuse are huge health risks. They directly harm our body and mind, basically weakening our defenses from the inside out. All right, pop quiz time. This is a classic NCERT question, and we've already touched on it. So can you tell me exactly why that first milk, the colostrum, is so incredibly important for a newborn baby? Think about what kind of immunity it's providing. So did you get it? The key phrase you're looking for is passive immunity. Colostrum is just loaded with ready-made antibodies, especially one called IgA. This gives the baby an instant temporary shield, protecting it from infections while its own immune system is still booting up. It's a perfect, natural example of passive immunity. Okay, time for a lightning round recap. Let's lock in the key features of those 4 big diseases. Ready? Typhoid. Key feature is the Widal test. Pneumonia infects the lung alveoli. Common cold does not infect the lungs. And malaria, it's spread by a mosquito vector. Seriously, burn this table into your brain. And I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. This whole chapter is really about two strategies: strengthening our internal defenses, our immune system, and fighting the external threats, the pathogens all around us. So which do you think is more important for protecting our whole community? There's no easy answer, but thinking about it really ties everything we've talked about today together. That's all for this explainer. Keep studying and stay healthy.